Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into this. Today, we're stepping directly into the shoes of a network engineer on day one of the job. No fancy graphical dashboards to click through, no cloud templates. It's just you, a console cable, a brand new Cisco router, and a blinking cursor. We're going to use a professional IT reference deck to build a real-world survival guide to get you configured, secured, and routing traffic fast. Here's our deployment flight plan for today. We'll be covering 1. Navigating iOS modes, 2. Securing your device, 3. Configuring interfaces, 4. Real-world routing, and 5. Troubleshooting outages.
All right, part 1. Navigating Cisco iOS modes, the security clearance hierarchy. So before you can configure anything, you really have to know where you are in the system. Cisco iOS operates in a strict hierarchy of modes, and it's actually a lot like corporate security badges. User exec mode, which is identified by that greater than arrow, is essentially the public lobby. You have read-only access. You can look around, but you definitely can't touch anything. Privileged exec mode, on the other hand, with the hashtag symbol, well, that's the restricted server room with full diagnostic access. And to escalate your privileges from the lobby to the server room, you use one vital command: enable. Let's actually move through this and see how it builds into a real workflow. When you connect, you land in user exec. You type enable to get to privileged exec. But even then, you still can't make system-wide changes. You have to type configure terminal to enter global config mode. You'll actually see your prompt change right there to include the word config in parentheses. Now this is where the magic happens. You make your change, like say naming the router, and then you use the end command to jump straight back out to privileged exec. Finally, and I cannot stress this enough, you have to save your work with copy run start. That writes your configuration to the router's permanent memory, the NVRAM. If you forget this step and that router loses power, poof, all your hard work instantly vanishes.
Section 2. Securing your new device, locking it down before going live. This takes us straight into Chapter 2 of our source material, which is absolutely crucial for real-world survival.
Listen, before you even think about plugging in any network cables, we have to talk about legal protection. Take a look at this message of the day, or MOTD banner. It might just look like standard, boring corporate boilerplate, but our source material is incredibly clear on this. Without explicit, unauthorized access is prohibited language, prosecuting an intruder becomes a total legal nightmare. Seriously, your corporate lawyers will thank you for this one simple configuration step.
Let's walk through some real-world examples from this Chapter 2 hardening checklist. And remember, order is everything here. First, you set your enable secret to lock that server room door. Second, you run service password encryption. You really don't want plain text passwords just sitting around for anyone peeking over your shoulder, right? Third, lock down the console port and kick those idle users out after 5 minutes using exec timeout 50. Only then do you say with copy run start. Why? Well, if you save before encrypting, you've just written your plaintext passwords directly to the device's flash memory. Always, always lock the doors before saving the floor plan.
All right, take a breath. We've navigated the system, we've totally locked it down. Now it's time to actually make this router do what it was built to do: move data. We are shifting gears into Chapter 5.
Section 3. Configuring network interfaces, making the router talk. So, picture this scenario. Your internet service provider has just handed you an Ethernet cable for your brand new WAN link. The whole business is sitting there just waiting for internet access. What exactly do you type to bring this connection to life?
Here's the exact command sequence. From global config, you enter the interface. Let's just say it's gigabit Ethernet 00. It is a massive best practice to immediately add a description, like WAN link to ISP, for future documentation. Trust me, future you will be grateful. Then you assign the IP address and subnet mask that the ISP provided. But here is the trick. On Cisco routers, physical interfaces are administratively disabled by default. You literally have to explicitly type no shutdown to wake the port up. And let me tell you, seeing that system message pop up confirming the state change to up is simply the best feeling on day one. Finally, verify the whole thing with show IP interface brief for a nice clean summary of your live connection.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that not all interfaces are physical cables. Sometimes you need a virtual one, like loopback 0. In the real world, physical cables get bumped, they go offline, stuff happens. If your routing protocols rely on a physical port's IP address to identify themselves, the whole network panics and recalculates every single time a cable wiggles. But by creating a logical loopback interface, you're giving the router a permanent stable identity that never goes down as long as the box has power. It is a massive win for network stability.
Moving right along to Section 4, Real-World Routing in NAT, Directing the Traffic.
Okay, to reach your remote office, you can set a primary static route. Pretty standard. But look closely at the backup floating static route, specifically that number 200 at the very end. That is the administrative distance, which is basically a trust rating. Lower numbers are trusted way more. So if your primary route fails, this backup route with its terrible trust rating of 200 is just sitting quietly in the background. The router suddenly goes, well, it's my only option now, and it instantly takes over. It's a brilliant way to get automated failover without any complex coding.
So the crucial point here is dealing with limited resources. Say your ISP only gave you one public IP, but you've got 50 computers in the office. Enter port address translation, or PAT. By applying the magical overload keyword, your router essentially acts like a corporate receptionist. It uses unique port numbers as extensions to map all 50 of those internal computers to that single public IP address. It's literally how entire branch offices can seamlessly share just one internet connection.
And finally, Section 5, troubleshooting network outages when the remote site goes dark. This is the moment every single engineer dreads, right? But honestly, it's where you earn your paycheck. A remote branch just drops offline. Whatever you do, don't guess. Follow the workflow. Step 1, show IP route. If the remote subnet is completely missing, you've got a routing fault. Step 2, show IP interface brief. If your WAN uplink says down, down, your physical connection is dead in the water. Step 3, show CDP neighbors detail. This proves if you can actually talk to the equipment on the other end of the cable. Running this quick 3-step check cuts right through the panic and gets you answers. This perfectly illustrates the difference between fixing a broken cable and fixing a bad typo. Seeing high input errors and CRC counters? Well, that's a layer 1 physical problem. You're looking at a frayed wire, a dying port, or I don't know, maybe a rodent chewed through the cable in the ceiling. But if the interface is up and you see an inbound access control list actively dropping traffic, the cables are totally fine. A rogue configuration rule is what's killing you. Knowing exactly which command to run tells you whether you need to go grab a screwdriver or dive right back into the command line. You know, we live in a world absolutely obsessed with automated dashboards. But here's the reality. Dashboards crash, cloud links fail, and scripts break all the time. When that inevitable day happens, and literally all you have is a flashing command line cursor in some dark server room, are you going to be the engineer who panics or the one who knows exactly what to type? Master these CLI foundations, and you become the ultimate safety net for your entire organization. Keep practicing, and hey, thanks so much for exploring this with me today.